So as previously said, the ball is now in President Cyril Ramaphosa's court when it comes to announcing who the country's next Chief Justice actually will be. Let's make sense of these latest developments, reflect on the week gone by, and bring in Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of Zululand, also political analyst, Professor Sipho Seepe, who joins us now via our telephone line. Prof, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed, as always, for making time. So in the absence of reasons given by the JSC about why they've recommended Maya, what do you think it was about her that stood out to them?
Well, there were a few things that are very important for the position of Chief Justice. One is somebody who understands the law. Secondly, somebody with administrative experience. But most importantly, it's also about the judicial temperament. And when she was interviewed, and there were also objections to her appointment, people claim that she lacks the intellectual gravitas to lead the judiciary. And she was able to respond to that both very comprehensively. To say, first of all, she has been a leader in the court, but she has written over 200 judgments that stood the test of time. She has also broken the record as the only other judge to have her judgments, two of the judgments, appearing in one journal, the South African Law Review report. And that is no insignificant, but also that she has gained the support of almost all the deans of the faculties of law. So she dealt with that issue of leadership. Then the second issue that was raised was that some of the judges in the Constitutional Court may be uneasy with somebody coming from outside. And she pointed out that most of those are people that she had worked with, that actually a number of them were even her juniors. So she cannot countenance a possibility where they did not want that. That idea and excuse has no basis in law. And thirdly, she also indicated a vision that the people could buy into. Her position on issues of transformation, her position on issues of access were much more compelling. And she also does not bring any controversies into the picture than some of her colleagues. One colleague who was very strong was Judge Madlanga, who had a real commanding intellectual presence. But unfortunately for Judge Madlanga, when he was asked a question, which should have been an easy question for him, on whether South Africa is ready for a woman chief justice, he blundered. He was flawed by that. And yet he's a judge who has written progressive judgments in support of women empowerment, in support of transformation. But he could not extricate himself from the self-interest in the position. And this is what weakened him. And the other two judges, unfortunately, they had other controversies that were emerging. Justice Zondo, for instance, there's already a matter that was going to be reported to the JSC in terms of judicial misconduct when he handled the matter of recusal with regard to Jacob Zuma. Sakani indicated at that time that your conduct here is unbecoming of a judge, that you cannot be a player and a referee at the same time. But also we saw Justice John Zondo taking what was considered largely a personal squabble, making it a constitutional crisis. And that crisis precipitated into what became the biggest social unrest South Africa has ever seen since 1994. And then there were other issues about now suddenly he remembers his close relationship with Jacob Zuma. Earlier he tried by all means to distance himself. So this was somebody who was seen to be inconsistent.
Sure.
Mlambo, on the other hand, was underwhelming at the level of scholarship. There's somebody who reportedly only got his LLB in 2019, and also whose judgments were also questionable. He himself acknowledged that one of the judgments against Jacob Zuma has been heavily criticized in academic circles. But worse still, you have a judge who comes with two contradictory judgments on a matter that is exactly the same, showing almost a certain bias. So he was found to be weak. But also, what he said about the other judges was also problematic, to talk about the judges being backstabbers and almost presenting the judiciary as this structure that is so full of what you call petty issues.
Sure.
And they had to be corrected by the acting president to say, look, when you say that, you must actually say some judges. So you saw there an absence of judicial temperament that you expect from the judge. But there were other issues that also came in.
Absolutely.
But
And
in the end,
before, I get you. Before we run out of time, I was just hoping to ask you several other questions as well. You certainly do get the sense that it was a combination of both a process of elimination about what may be problematic about the other candidates, also just Maya standing out through her own excellence. In fact, those who had been skeptical of her being recommended to this position had actually mentioned that she was likely to become a victim of her own success. What do I mean by that? She has done so well as the president of the Supreme Court of Appeal that there were concerns that removing her from that court would weaken it, which would ultimately have a domino effect when you consider just how the judiciary is structured. That kind of concern, do you reckon it holds any water?
Actually, she dealt with that also very well.
Yeah.
She actually felt that it is an insult to her colleagues who have leadership qualities. She was actually saying, when you say that my removal or moving from the Supreme Court of Appeal will collapse the organization, is actually, or the structure, it's insulting to people with who are senior in their own right, who are great jurists in their own right, and therefore she said that let us not go there, because some of the people who are under me are now in the Constitutional Court. How could they have been in the Constitutional Court when they were dunderheads? So she also dealt with that has no basis. So effectively, she was able to respond to each and every excuse that was given, because some people preferred certain people who may have been seen to be executive-minded.
It was Professor Thuli Madonsela, shortly after the announcement yesterday, who went on to point out that according to Section 174 of the Constitution, the JSC is just one of the structures to be consulted in the president's decision-making process. In fact, I think politicians and members of the National Assembly have also to be consulted. With that in mind, do you still reckon it's a far-gone conclusion that Maya will be appointed Chief Justice?
Well, given the president, the pressure of understanding the importance of structures would make it be difficult for him to not consider what the Judicial Service Commission has said, because that structure also has political parties represented. So you have far greater, almost a broader spectrum of perspectives that came together to say, on this, given the balance of evidence, there's only one person who emerges. It is for that reason that they chose not to give the president two people, but to give one, to say, you cannot ignore that this one rises above the rest.
The JSC has certainly been unequivocal about who they think ought to occupy that position. Thanks very much indeed for your take. And I guess, as the cliche goes, only time will tell when we figure out what the president will do. For now, thanks once again, Deputy Vice-Chancellor at the University of Zululand, Professor Sipho Seepe, also a political analyst.